As you can see, I'm the token old dude. I have to eat first, though. That's the only thing that happened here. They say visitors and old people, and I get to go both times. I want to talk this morning about learning to be more like Christ in our everyday life. We were made to be like Jesus, made in God's image. We are not trying to transform ourselves in the image of Christ. But what we want God to do is let God do that. Let God change us inside. The Bible describes as the Holy Spirit living in us. God's living in us, Jesus living in us, and the power to change us, it comes from God. Christ, the power, let's see, our behavior comes from Him, not from within ourselves. And it's not a work that we can do, it's a work that God does. Please allow this to happen in your lives. Please allow God, as we're Christians, allow God to change us. Because we don't have the resources to change ourselves. And I found that out being a person that was not raised in the church. And I had a lot of issues and a lot of problems that I had to deal with. Until I turned those problems over to God, nothing was done. In fact, the problems got worse. And as I became a Christian in 1975, I realized that if I did not turn those things over to God, then they would haunt me forever. And it would actually deter me from being the Christian that I should be. We are created for a purpose as Christians, and that purpose is eternal happiness, living with a supremely loving God, as it tells us in Psalms 16 and 11. Jesus is not just an example of how we ought to live. He's also an example of what salvation actually means. He lives in eternal glory and says that we can join Him in that glory if we just trust Him. How do we invite God to do His work in our lives? How do we become more like Christ? And we can look at several different ways. In worship, we are reminded that God's greatness, His mercy, and His desire to do good in our lives. We are reminded that we can trust Him and that we must depend on Him, just as Jesus did. Jesus went to the cross and died a cruel death, but He always trusted God. And that's a good thing that we need to reflect on our lives. One thing I want to mention right now, just out of context, is that the people here in this congregation left family, they left everything they had. They came to this place with no jobs, and they started a congregation here, and you can look at it today. And that just impresses me deeply, that they would take that kind of faith and incorporate it into a congregation here. I've got a bunch of other notes, but I'm not even going to finish this. I want to let us know that this is the kind of determination and ability of these four families that came here and started this congregation out of nothing. Out of nothing. No jobs. Can you imagine just leaving your job today or your home today and going to Toledo, and you drive into Toledo with nothing, and yet you build, through God's help and through God's love, you build a congregation like this. That's just totally amazing to me, and it makes me feel good, and that I know you folks. It makes my faith better. It makes my courage stronger, my love stronger. So don't ever underestimate what you've done here. But you got to let God change you from the inside. Don't try to change yourself. If you have frustrations in this congregation, if you have something going wrong in this congregation, talk it out. And I've seen that happen, and that's just amazing to me. If we got a problem, you talk it out in prayer and through God. It's being taken care of. And that's all I have to say.
Amen.